Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review. And since this Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review. And since it's Women's History Month, I'm here today to talk to you about Power Rangers Lost Galaxy Power of Pink. So this is the second part of a two-part crossover special of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy and Power Rangers in Space. The two space themed Power Ranger series. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this and on International Women's Day is because of Kendrix. Now, Kendrix is one of my favorite pink Power Rangers and one of my favorite Power Rangers. But she shows such bravery in this episode, and something happened to her that has never happened to any other Power Ranger in Power Rangers history. She will always go down in history because of this story arc. Now, originally, years ago, when this story arc happened, I thought, wow, what a dramatic thing. What a, such a character-driven thing, you know? Like, this is something you've never seen in Power Rangers history before. And so I gave props to the storytelling and development. And of course, at that point in time, I didn't know why this happened. And then after I did know what happened, I didn't really put two and two together until Serena Vincent said something, I think about a year and a half ago, when she was on Power Rangers Playback. Now, Serena Vincent is the Yellow Ranger in this series, and Valerie Vernon is the Pink Ranger in this series. And she was outraged by this story arc. And now I totally get what she's coming from, seeing why the writers wrote it the way they did. If they would have wrote it for any other reason, it would have been great. But because they wrote it when Valerie was sick, that was screwed up. Now, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, in this episode, Kendrix, the original Pink Lost Galaxy Ranger, she dies in battle. And I mean legit die. And yeah. So I was like, wow, man, I couldn't believe Power Rangers went that dark. And so, but the reason why they did that, because at that time, Valerie Vernon was suffering from leukemia cancer. And so, because of that, she missed the rest of the half of the series. And now I totally get what Serena's talking about. It's like kind of like there was a possibility she might die, and they wrote her off by killing her. And I'm just kind of like, dude, like you could have wrote her off like you did everybody else. Why write her off this way? And so yeah, like I totally get what Serena is coming from. I still think story wise it's like one of the most dramatic, one of the best writing things ever, but the reasons why was totally screwed and jacked up. You know what I'm saying? Now thankfully Valerie is alive and everything and she survived leukemia. But still, they could have just wrote her off by saying like she went on a special quest, or like I don't know, something like she got homesick when about the Earth or something like that. They had to write off her character dying. Now, back when I saw this, I never assumed she died. Like, because when this happens, you see she falls in battle and her body is glowing and she gets sucked into her Quasar Saber sword, which is her Power Ranger sword. Then the sword goes off and then she doesn't reappear until the very next episode when she's talking to the new Pink Ranger. And so I'm like, okay, oh, her spirit form is, I figured it was like this. Okay, she got lost in battle. She's injured, and the morphing grid kind of like sucked her into her sword, where her body healed, and she was able to talk to the next ranger in the next episode. And then she doesn't reappear until the very last episode of the season, when she comes back fully alive, and she does come back fully alive because the sword and the morphing grid has healed her body. So that's what I always assume happened. I just assumed she was really hurt. And like her powers healed her. I didn't think she actually like died, but thing I keep reading and stuff says that, yeah, she died and stuff. And even some of the stars have confirmed it. And, her next appearance after this was the crossover between Lost Galaxy and Lightspeed Rescue. And then after that, her character doesn't appear no more, but she does, but the Pink Galaxy Ranger does appear in the final, legacy battle thing. But then that's the second one that took up the mantle, Corone, and that's because Valerie didn't fly out to New Zealand because Saban was not going to pay for a round trip and hotel fees and everything else, like for expenses, because Saban is a billionaire who is cheap and stuff. And so, like, I don't blame her for not going over there and stuff, just for a cameo role. And that's basically what it was, a cameo role and stuff. And so, yeah. But I still think she should be honored for this bravery and the sacrifice that she made in this episode, which was just like amazing. So on the story standpoint, I still think it's an amazing story. But when you know like the actual real reasons behind it, the writers are messed up. So in the first part of this, which I will cover one day when I do Power Rangers crossovers, because this is one of the better Power Rangers crossovers that ever happened. And it was the first good one, because the one in what was it? Zeo and Alien Ranger, that wasn't good. That wasn't good at all. Like, you don't even see the Alien Rangers like humanoid form and stuff. So yeah, the Psycho Rangers come back and Lightspeed Lost Galaxy, not Lightspeed, and Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. They get defeated, and Psycho Pink is the only one to survive. Fitting, because she was the first to die in space. So she's badly wounded, injured, and there are like burn marks all over her body. And she's slowly limped out of the rubble. But Deviant finds her. He takes her back to Trakina, and he's talking about how he's going to improve on her. Her being a Psycho Ranger, they're very arrogant, very proud, and she doesn't want his help. She doesn't want his pity, and she doesn't want to destroy all the Power Rangers. She just wants to destroy the Pink Ranger. That is the Psycho Ranger's purpose. It's to destroy their colored ranger. And so she threatens to attack Trakina and everything, and then she leaves. So, but Trakina doesn't care, because she's all like, well, she's gonna go after a Power Ranger, at least, let it be at least one or two and stuff like that. So she doesn't really care as long as one gets destroyed. And so at this point in time, we see Kendris, and she's in the science lab, and she's researching the Galaxy book, and come across something called the Savage Sword. And I remember watching this, I'm thinking to myself, why does Valerie's hair look different for her? Like, you can clearly tell it's a wig. I didn't know what the world was going on back then. And I just knew her hair was different. Because, if you look at, other pictures of her, then her hair looks like what her normal hair looks like. And this is what the wig thing looks like. And I could never figure out what the world was going on. And it's because, she was, bald at that time. And so, as she's reading up on the sword in the book, Psycho Pink has went through the computer system. It comes out the computer system, and it absorbs Kendra's new memories, and it now knows about the Savage Sword. And so it leads up to that. Kendra's all worried. She leaves the place, and who does she happens to run into? Cassie, the Pink in Space Ranger, because they're still there on Terra Venture after the crossover from the last episode. And so Cassie wants to know oh, what's up. And she tells her, that Psycho Pink wants the Savage Sword. It's on a planet that's right next to them, and she's going to get it. And she blames herself because she says it's all her fault. But it's not her fault. How was she going to know that Psycho Pink was in the computer and going to read her memories and stuff? And so she feels like she should be the only person to stop Psycho Pink, and she goes at it alone without telling anybody. And that's brave, but that's also dumb. You have to have backup, especially with a Psycho Ranger. Because Psycho Rangers are so tough, it took the In Space Rangers about 4 or 5 episodes to defeat them. When 4 or 5 episodes per week is basically a month. And the Galaxy Rangers, along with the In Space Rangers, were able to defeat them, but mostly it was the Galaxy Rangers because the Galaxy Rangers are more powerful than the In Space Rangers. Because the In Space Rangers, their powers are alien tech based that they tapped into the Morphin Grid, whereas the Lost Galaxy Rangers are magical based and everything. They're like purely magical based within their sword, and that taps into the Morphin Grid. And with the help of the light of Orion, they was able to defeat the Psycho Rangers like not like very quickly. And so Cassie decides she's gonna join her. So they travel through space and they go into the planet. And so like I think yeah, at this point in time, they finally have contacted the other Rangers. And so before the other Rangers can get there, Trakina sends down some Stingwingers. So they fight hand to hand combat, which I always love seeing them in the civilian form fighting them. And then they're too much for the Lost Galaxy Rangers, which is funny because those are the foot soldiers they normally fight. So after just getting like tossed around like very quickly by them, they decide to morph, which causes the In Space Rangers to morph. Now I love a group morph and everything. And so they're fighting the Stingwingers, while the two Pink Rangers are on the other planet. Psycho Pink is like very like wounded still, but she finds the sword in the stone. Yeah, it's the whole sword in the stone thing. She pulls it out, and it has a different appearance than that of the book. And I remember thinking to myself, hey, that blade looks totally different. The blade that came out the sword is very skinny, and the blade in the book is really fat. And so the other two Rangers, they're upset that she pulled the sword out. And Psycho Pink is on the rampage and she attacks both of them with the sword. And as she's attacking them, the sword changes in like appearance and now it's a little bit more chunkier and stuff. And so she explains which like each blow the sword gets more powerful, so then she starts drawing energy from the sword, and so she's restoring her form because she's still injured. So she's just like attacking both of them left and right, but she's attacking Cassie a whole lot more. And so then she takes the sword and she starts like absorbing all of Cassie's like energy, and Psycho Pink has now been fully restored. And so as she's striking both left and right, she strikes Cassie down so hard that her morpher falls off. And she demorphs. And then so as Psycho Pink's about to destroy Cassie, she sees her morpher and realizes that her morpher, which has a lot of power and energy in it, that combined with the sword can cause like catastrophe. So she stabs at the morpher and breaks it in half. And next thing you know, this huge pink cloud, like tornado whirlwind type thing happens. And so, like, but not only that, but like a huge energy field circles like the morpher and the sword. So now this pink like clouds is going everywhere and it's affecting Terra Venture because that cloud went all the way into space and it's miles and miles long. And so, like, the other Rangers, they can see that. Like, they can literally see it from Terra Venture. It is that thick. And there's some great CGI with that. And so the Rangers, they head to go stop Psycho Pink and everything. So, because the Pink and Space Morpher is now damaged, it is now tied to Cassie. So she is now hurt and wounded. And so she can barely move and everything. So Kendrick feels like it's up to her. So she takes her Quasar Saber and she's trying to enter like the energy field which the Savage Sword is around. Now at this point in time, Psycho Pink has become very, very, very big in her monster form. And as she's cackling, talking about destroying the universe, she gets punched with a fist you see come from off screen. So it comes, no, actually it comes within camera and it punches her. Who is it? It's the Galaxy Megazord and everything. And so then we see the Space Rangers, they take the Astro Megaship, which is rightfully theirs, and they form their Megazord. However, because the footage is Sentai and the in space stuff, we see the Pink Ranger in the cockpit. They couldn't even bother to work hard enough to get her out. And so both Zords are formed, and if you notice something, it doesn't look like Sentai. It looks like the real thing, the American footage. It's because they shipped the Megazord suits on over, which is very shocking because normally they just send over the props and the alien suits, the monster suits. They normally never send a Megazord suit, which explains now that Megazord battle they had with Lorlax in whatever that other one I talked about a couple of weeks ago. And I noticed that it was just weird because it just looked different. It didn't look like Sentai. Because the Sentai back in the day and this one had a more sharper color palette. Almost like a burnt type color palette to it. And so while they're busy doing that, Kendrix is still trying to get within the sword. And so they defeat, of course, Psycho Pink. And when they do, for some reason, the Rangers decide to unmorph. Why? I have literally no idea. And so they run towards her. Oh, by the way, Maya has a new hairstyle in this. She pulls her hair back now. And so, I don't know why they need more. If you think if they wanted to stop the Savage Sword, they'll need their protection of their powers. But I guess they wanted more screen time with the faces and stuff. And so they run up there and they try to stop her. But at this point, they can see Kendrix enter the energy field and talking about how she's the only one who could do it. You gotta give her up for her bravery, man. Because she said before, the Savage Sword is more powerful than all the Quasar Sabers combined. And the Quasar Sabers are pretty powerful, but one thing I've never understood about them, everybody wants a Quasar Saber, talking about how powerful they are, but we never get to see how powerful they are. They act like just regular swords, and they can light up like regular swords and hit you with energy, but other than that, they don't do anything special other than they have the powers of the Power Rangers locked inside and causes people to morph. And so that's really the only thing that's special about it. You have a Quasar Saber, you can become a Power Ranger. And so with one strike, boy, she lights that sword up and destroys it. And you see this huge burst of energy and everything, and she flies back. The other Rangers are worried, they're running towards her, and they see Cassie, and then they see the Pink Ranger, the Lost Galaxy one, hovering in the air, glowing with the sword in her hand. And then she demorphs, and all we see is Kendrix, limp body, floating in the air. And she looks up and she tells everybody I'll be fine, and tells them to be safe. And it's a weird feeling. It's kind of what the world is going on when you watching this as younger and stuff. And it's just kind of why is she glowing and why is she floating in the air she's kind of hurt or dead or what? And the next thing you know, her a big burst of pink energy comes, and she's gone. And then the energy goes into the sword, and the sword just flies off into space. And it was just kind of wait, what the world just happened here? Because if you watch past episodes, you notice that Kendrix barely says anything when she's morphed, and when she is morphed, her voice sounds completely different. And when they show her in her civilian forms, sometimes they show her, and sometimes it's a stand-in person. And it was just kind of oh no, she left the show. But why? Because this happens in other Power Ranger seasons too, when things start to sound different with their voices and stand-ins and stuff. And so after this, everybody's sad and they're moping around as they say goodbye to each other. Now, the In Space Rangers, for some bizarre reason, are morphed when they say goodbye to each other. and I don't understand why. And it's funny because the stunt actors in the in spacesuit look so short and tiny compared to that the Galaxy Rangers. The Galaxy Rangers look like giants, and the Space Rangers look super tiny. And so this is of course because they don't have the original suits from I guess the last season, so the actors can't like put them on and stuff. And so like because of that, they just can't do it. Now, at this point, Cassie is really upset and wishes there was more she could have done and feels like this is all her fault and Kendrick is dead because of her. And Andros tells her, she knew the cost when she became a ranger and like we all do. And this is just what we do as heroes and stuff. And so after that, they all leave, and they leave the mega ship behind for the Rangers, the Lost Galaxy Rangers to keep, which I always thought was kind of weird, cause like when before they left, they said that the Galaxy Rangers have their mission and we have ours, and so they leave with their morphers and morph intact, and so they're like gone, and I was just always thinking to myself, what mission is he talking about? Because they're retired, and not only they're retired, but in the last episode, we saw that all their morphers are inside the megaship. So there was no mission for them to be on. But for some reason, now all of a sudden they have a mission, and now they're back to being Power Rangers. I'm like, okay, well, you're back to being Power Rangers. Why aren't you on the show and get rid of other people and stuff? And of course, I thought maybe they'll come back next season, but they never did. And it was kind of weird they didn't take the Mega Ship because if they're on a mission, they're gonna need a Megazord. So that part is kind of badly written. Um, and they're talking about now what are they gonna do because the pink quasar saber, of course, is gone, and so like it ends. And you gotta give it up to Kendricks, man. She knew the risk. She knew that she was outmatched by Psycho Pink and this the what you call them, the Savage Sword, which now looks the way it does in the book. And she still went at it, man. And that's pretty brave. Like she knew she was gonna sacrifice herself for the greater good, which is what a lot of soldiers and cops and law enforcement and stuff like that does. They put their lives on the line so that other people can live and stuff. And that's why Kendra would be one of the greatest Pink Rangers to like ever live and stuff because she did what no other ranger did. She literally sacrificed herself. And I still think that's great story, like character development and stuff, and dramatic tension and stuff like that. But it does suck the reason why the writers wrote that way. Because what if she would have died from leukemia? Then her character would have died on screen too, and that would have been terrible. So I hope the writers, if they are gonna write a person's death, which they don't no more because it's like a kid show, if they were to ever do that, don't do it because a person's sick. That was just low down. And I'm so thankful she is still alive and everything in real life. Now, what's also messed up was that not every actor on the show knew that Valerie was sick. Take the villains, for example. Like the actress who plays Trakina, yes, that's her. I know. She doesn't look white no more. She looks very ethnic, let's put it that way. But yes, that is her. I'm not even gonna go into that can of worms. I'm just gonna let her do her. That's not what this video is about. But like she talked about on when she was on Power Rangers Playback, she talked about how she didn't even know Valerie was sick because see the villains they filmed their stuff far away from that of the heroes, in like the studio and stuff, and so like they rarely got to see like like the Rangers. That's how like it is with every Power Ranger season in the Fox Kids days. I don't know how it is now. But that's how it was back then. Because I remember Carol Holt who played like Divatox from Turbo, she said the same thing. Like they film away from like the Rangers and stuff. And so the people in charge of the show didn't even let the villains know that like Valerie was sick. And so like I remember Serena said that they wasn't even able to visit her in the hospital because they had to film the show because they filmed like 3 episodes in one day. That is messed up. Like, that is just messed. See, this is why Power Rangers was so destructive back in the Fox Kids and Saban days, because they was just treated as like labor and everything. And when one of theirs was like sick and everything, they wasn't even able to go visit her. Now, I'm not sure who paid for Valerie's medical bills. I'm hoping to God Saban did that. Like, I'm hoping he did. The man's a billionaire. So I have no idea who paid for him, but it would have been a nice gesture if he did and stuff. Now, when it came to replacing Kendricks, one thing Power Rangers don't do is that they don't replace characters. Well, except for like the voice of Alpha. That's the only time they ever replace somebody. And also the Rita from Power Rangers, because it was Sentai footage, the Japanese actress in like the first season, and then by the second and the third and everything after that, they had to get like an American actress to do it. So that's the only time they ever replace an actual like character, or the star for that character. But other than that, when they replace Rangers, they don't recast a person to play that same character. Instead, they just bring in a new character. But they thought about bringing in an older character. And who better than that of Cassie, the In-Space Ranger herself? I know what you're thinking. She went off with the Space Rangers and everything. Well, after doing some research, it turns out that originally that Patricia Jolie was supposed to become the new Pink Galaxy Ranger. And in fact, she even did a morphing sequence and everything for like the character. And if you do the morphing sequence, that means you have to be fitted for a costume. So at some point in time, she wore the Pink Galaxy costume and everything. And so, cause I don't think they CGI, cause they had the people wearing the costume doing like the hand movements and stuff like that. So at some point they had to fit her for the costume, and they filmed the morphing sequence. So these pictures and this footage is nowhere to be found online. Like, if you see Patricia's face in the Galaxy costume here, that's because I photoshopped it in. And no, I did not Photoshop the Trakina Amy Miller. No, I did not Photoshop her ethnic new skin tone and face features and stuff. That's all her. But you're asking yourself, well, how come Cassie didn't play her then, or play the new Galaxy Ranger? And that is because there's two different versions of this story. One version is that they wasn't gonna give her a main character status on this show. They were just gonna give her that of a recurring or a guest star appearance, and she didn't want that. There's also another rumor going around about money. Power Rangers, the stars, and money. The old tale. And so rumor is it that they wasn't gonna pay her the same amount as they paid that of the actual stars on the show. They was only gonna pay her for a guest appearance role, and she turned them down. I don't blame her. I mean, that was a huge franchise back in the day, and Saban is a billionaire, so they should have just bucked up the cash. And it's kind of the same thing with the Silver Ranger. He did not appear in the crossover event because they just didn't contact him. And then they did contact him many years later. And I think he asked for like $300. He said, just to re-dye his hair back blonde because he's a brunette in real life. And after that, he didn't hear from them. And it's just like $300. They can't even buck up that. I mean, come on now. What is with this show, man? And so Patricia was out. So then they decided, well, who they gonna bring in? And then they brought in one of the best candidates they could have brought in. They brought in Karone, aka Astronema, and Melody Perkins, the actress from In Space, the one who played Astronema, who was Andro's sister. And she was already been on Power Rangers, where she played the central villain, and then we found out that she was Andro's long lost sister, only for her to turn good, only for her to be brainwashed after that. And so she was the perfect candidate for doing it. Now, I would have loved to see Patricia Jolie But it was cool seeing Melody for the first time as a Power Ranger, and she was actually supposed to be the Power Ranger in space when they were thinking about at one point should they have like a second season, because at that point in time they didn't know if the show was gonna get canceled or not in space, and so that's why at the end of In Space she wears that purple outfit and stuff because she was supposed to be a purple In Space Ranger, and so yeah, so that would have been really, really cool to see and everything. So, and I love Melody as like a Power Man. We finally got to see her be nice full time. And she has like the sweetest voice, man. you know? And but oddly enough, she only morphed once on the show, like footage wise. I don't know why that is, but she did. I think it was in her third appearance on the show. And so it's the episode where Damon has to got his idea and invention stolen from this one scientist, and there's like this monster with sound waves. So it's that episode. And I don't understand why they only show her morph one time, because people love some like morph sequences and stuff. But yeah, so that's the story of that. Happy Women's History Month, everybody. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.